Hello and welcome to Azur Lane Meta. If after this video you want to help support the channel, please check out my affiliate store at kit.co/AzurLaneMeta. Welcome back, guys. Today we have another data mine for the newest Italian event. It's a rerun event and there are only 2 new ships, so this video is going to be really quick. We're going to start off talking about those 2 new ships, then we'll go very briefly into, for new players, what the older rerun ships mean for them, and then potentially like how your event is going to work and what gears you should go towards. It's going to be a very short video and probably most of you will only care about the research on the first 2 ships, so this will kill my retention rate. First up, we have the only SR in the event, the heavy cruiser Pola. She's the sister ship to Zara, so I imagine she'll be very similar to her. We have the exact same health, we have the exact same firepower, we have the exact same reload, accuracy, evasion, speed, and luck. The only thing that is different is Pola has a slightly higher anti-air stat than Zara. In terms of the efficiency, she has a 5% increase on the main gun on the efficiencies. She has a 5% increase on the auxiliary gun on the efficiencies, and she has the exact same anti-air efficiency as her sister. So Pola right now is looking stat-wise to just be a straight upgrade over Zara, but let's look at the skills. For the first skill, 50% chance on the main gun firing to trigger a special barrage that has a 10-second cooldown. That barrage does that special SAP damage modifier, which is 65%, 125%, 65% for the damage modifiers, meaning that against medium armor targets, she's going to do a ton of damage. If there are 2 or more Italian ships in the fleet, a 20% additional barrage trigger chance. So it's a 70% chance if you use Littorio and Zara. So this barrage makes her be a more offensive capable heavy cruiser. Let's see what the second skill brings in. For the first 45 seconds of the battle, she has self-evasion stat by plus 15%. In most cases, this is better than a shield for a heavy cruiser. It's going to only add a little bit of evasion because she's not that great of an evasion tank, but it will help in a stat that she's bad at. While she's alive, Italian Vanguard ships, which should include herself, will increase their firepower by 10% and their anti-air by 15%. This buffs Zara directly, it buffs herself, and Zara class ships, which once again buffs Zara and will buff herself, will take 6% less damage. So this second skill is very defensive, will help her on the defensive side. So these skills are very good. I'm glad to see that synergy is there. I called that she was going to have synergy with her sister, and I'm glad to see there is some synergy there. And maybe when we get to see a future Italian event where, you know, maybe Vittorio Veneto is the flagship or something like that, we'll see further synergy. Her last skill is just the standard Zara class barrage with that SAP special type ammo. I don't actually think that she needs to use the special AP ammo type gun that comes with this event like her sister Zara typically is advised to use that gun, but pretty good ship overall. She's got a good pair of offensive and defensive skills. She's probably not going to be comparable to your uber tier PR heavy cruisers. Even recently we've gotten Rune Mew and we've gotten Prince Heinrich, which are great offensive based heavy cruisers. So she's really hard to kind of place in that top tier just because of that, but her synergy with Zara makes her and Zara together work pretty well and put her in the tier of being able to get the exact same job done in PvE, which is pretty good. Zara is a little bit more defensive like Rune, but Pola is a little bit more offensive, such as like a Rune Mew. So it's kind of how I like to look at it here. I think she's probably a little bit better than Zara, but ultimately she's good enough that I'm going to be pulling for her. I really want her. Next up, we have the Elite Destroyer. That's already really bad combination there. Elite Destroyers tend not to be too great, so I'm not expecting much, especially from the Italian fleet. But we have Vincenzo Gioberti. I probably butchered that. Even though I'm Italian, I don't know Italian, so I probably butchered that. I mean, I speak English and I butcher English all the time anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, destroyers, especially elite destroyers, tend not to be relevant. But stats wise, she's got below 2,000 health. All of her stats are pretty trash, just like the other Italian destroyer, Carabinier. Once again, gonna butcher that. But point is, they're very similar. And what we have here is she has a lower firepower and higher torpedo stat than Carabinier, less evasion too, which is a little bit unfortunate. So terrible stats. In terms of the efficiency, she loses a ton of main gun efficiencies. So much for that firepower being relevant. Torpedoes efficiency goes up a little bit. Anti-air efficiency goes up quite a bit, but it's not because her anti-air efficiency is any good. It's just because Carabiners is terrible. So in terms of, I don't know, she's more focused on torpedoes based on her stats alone. We'll see what the skills say. Upon taking damage, increase her own firepower by 3% and her own evasion by 3%. This can stack 5 times for a total of 15%. When she gets 5 stacks, she gains 5 speed and fires a special barrage. And then that barrage will fire every 30 seconds for the remainder of the battle. The barrage is meh. It's okay. And why did they do this? I mean, they literally made her have more torpedo efficiency, more torpedo stat, less firepower, less efficiency for the main gun, and then they give her a skill that literally boosts her firepower and does nothing to her torpedo stat. I'll remind you, she does not have that main gun +1, and this is the synergy you'd expect from the pizza fleet. Anyway, second skill, 50% chance to trigger every 15 seconds, increase the Vanguard accuracy by 20% for 10 seconds. It's a nice to have. It's not that great. Yeah, and then she just has like a standard barrage there. This ship's pretty garbage, to be honest, but I also didn't expect anything from an elite destroyer Italian ship, but it just has a special type of skills not matching up with what it's supposed to be doing, but that's okay. We're only here for Pola. So yeah, Pola is definitely worth getting, especially for newer players who don't have a heavy cruiser lineup from all the PRs. Like, you don't have St. Louis, you don't have Rerun, you don't have Prince Heinrich, you don't have Rerun Mew. Those last two obviously aren't PRs, but those heavy cruisers are very powerful, but those are also sometimes very hard to get, especially if you're starting in this your newest event. Putting Pola and Zara together are great. From the old ship, Zara, we've talked a lot about her. She's like a light version of Rune. She's a defensive heavy cruiser, a shield tank, so can be pretty effective for if you're trying to clear EX modes or a lot of those harder missions that are bullet hells. Those are a bunch easier when you have a shield like Zara, and Zara's shield kind of procs randomly, so that can actually be good because a lot of ships that are shield tanks like Rune or Prince Eugen have their ships proc exactly at the same time every run, and sometimes that just doesn't work for every EX mode or every map, and Zara's can proc randomly, so if you can get multiple attempts in, you can actually have her, if you continue to try over and over again, you'll eventually have her shield proc at the right time. So that's kind of interesting, but generally she's considered a little bit worse than Rune, but completely usable to get all of your content done. There's not anything that Zara can't really get done. I think just in the niche settings that she's slightly worse than Rune. If we're talking about Littorio's an above average battleship. She's got a unique skill of the shields that block torpedoes instead of shells. Last time I said something about this, a lot of you said El Zuri, don't forget about El Zuri, but Littorio was the one that got that started, and she still has probably the most effective one. It's interesting, but once again, she's just kind of a standard above average battleship. So if you're a newer player and you need a barrage battleship like her, she's perfect for trying to clear out the mid game of the main storyline. And she's got some decent skills. I mean, she's not top tier, but she'll be good enough, so good to pick up there. And then, as last time, Formidable is still going to be the target capture ship of this event, an Italian event where the British ship is the most sought after. She is a fantastic carrier, top tier carrier, PvE, fantastic. She doesn't have a lot of health, and she's a little bit slower than some of your other carriers, so for PvP she's not as effective, but for PvE, especially with the hidden carrier mechanic, she is a powerhouse tank. And unlike the last event with the German carrier Peter Strasser, whose pause is completely random, Formidable's is very easy to time because it's based on her launch, so you can use homing beacons, and you can use different planes that have launch times to time exactly Formidable's freeze right up with something like a Warspite or any of your other high-hitting, battleships. So very effective in PvE. She does a ton of damage as well. She's pretty much a must-have if you don't already have a top-tier carrier like Essex or Centaur or Shinano or Hiru meta. So she's a definite pickup for new players. All right, last thing I want to talk about is the equipments that you might need here. The first one is the 381mm. This is obtainable in the shop. This is for Littorio, who's also obtainable in the shop. And basically, this is the best gun on Littorio outside of using a 457. 457 is pretty much the rarest gun in the game, except maybe Drake's gun. But most people don't have one. If they do have it, it's usually one. There's a few people with two out there, but it's a very rare gun. So if you don't have a 457 to put on her, this is the next best option. She gets a bonus from it because of her barrage from it. So it's very cheap and easy to get for her. You can get it right out of the shop for like what, 2,000 points. It's really cheap. If you're planning on using Littorio, it's kind of a must pick up. And if you're not, I would still just pick it up just in case you want to use Littorio down the road. If per se Victorio Veneto comes out, or Imperial comes out, or Roma or Aquila, those ships come out and they make the Italian fleet actually like really viable, like Richelieu did to the French fleet overnight, then you might want to just have it in the wings. The next thing that is pretty important is the Fairy Albacore. This is obtainable in the shop as well for 1,000 points, really cheap. This is basically Formidable's special plane. She gets an extra damage boost in the slot that you use this specific plane in it, and it's pretty cheap to upgrade. Newer players who are using Formidable definitely need to use it, and even for the meta players, I like to put one of this in my slot. It saves up on some of my other planes, it saves up on my prints, and ultimately, until you start getting a bunch of plus 13 airplanes, this at plus like 11 is going to be fantastic. So it's really going to be only outclassed by plus 13 gold planes, but for now, if you're just playing with plus 10 equipments, this is the way to go. Finally, we have the twin 203mm. This is Zara's gun. It has that special AP ammo that does extra damage to medium armor and just shreds medium armor, which is actually kind of nice because this is going to be equipped on basically your Zara, your heavy cruisers in your front line, which can tear apart other heavy cruisers. Zara loves this gun because she gets extra damage boost off of it, and unlike HE, it has no downside of reducing ignite chance, basically. So this is the gun that you use with Zara. For Pola, there's no reason to particularly use this gun over any of the meta guns for Pola in Exact. So obviously she would rather have any of the meta stuff, which, you know, meta heavy cruiser guns are hard to obtain. But this one is actually not that easy to obtain. I would recommend picking one up for use with Zara, and this is obtainable in D3. It's a drop there, and also the SP mode. So, you know, most people are going to be doing D3 anyway, so it's pretty easy to try and do this, but you do have to get it the hard way, and I would definitely recommend picking up one if you haven't already. All right, guys, that's the whole event. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this was informational for what you want to spend your cubes on, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and you want to get more info on Azur Lane when it comes out hot and ready off the press.